Welcome, and let me tell you something. I am the greatest. Who said that? Remember? How many of you remember? I am the greatest. He said it. It was, of course, Muhammad Ali, but then he was Cassius Clay when he said it. I am the greatest. He said it, and was he the greatest? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. But did he convince you that he was the greatest? Maybe not, but he convinced a lot of people. And what he said it, and see, it's what we say a lot of times that makes all the difference in the world. That's what people remember. And Muhammad Ali was one of the best at saying, I'm the greatest. I'm not that good at it, but I'm the greatest today. Welcome to a Hangout with Coach Manny. I'm excited to have you all here today. This is another one of those great events where we're going to teach you about making presentations. We'll give people a couple minutes here to get on, and then we're going to get started. If you have any comments, just throw them at the bottom here. What we're going to talk about today, I actually did this presentation live yesterday. Little less than what we're going to give you today, but it's all about being able to get in front of people and do that presentation, isn't it? Aren't you excited? So what did I do when I said I'm the greatest? What was that? Well, you know, I like to use my cards like Alex taught me, Alex Mendocino, and if you haven't seen his stuff, he's probably the best. Attention getter. That's what we went through there. It was an attention getter. This was the way for me to get you to say, wow, what's going on here? And why did I use an attention getter? Well, because I need people to pay attention. When you do a presentation, the most important thing is I got to get the people to realize, hey, Manny's here. I got to pay attention to him, right? As my friend James Malachek taught me, sometimes you got to do it a little different. He taught me about starting from the back. So a lot of times I'll get in with a bigger crowd, big event, and I'll start talking, and I'll actually be in the back of the event when it starts, and I'll start talking from there. And now what happens is people have to turn around, and they have to move, and they have to leave their phones alone, and they have to say, what is going on here? And guess what? I got their attention. That's so important. That's the first thing I'm going to teach you today is you have to have an attention getter. Now, if I was able to juggle, you know what I'd do? I'd be on that stage and I'd be juggling. Why? Because very few people can do it. It's something people are amazed at. It looks good. And, of course, it gets your attention. And that's not the only thing. There's a lot of things you could do. If you do something, if you know how to flip backwards, if you know how to, jump off of something, it doesn't matter. Something that says, whoa, I need to pay attention now. It's time for me to pay attention to what's going on the stage. That's what an attention getter does for you. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about that presentation today, and there are really 3 pieces that you need to remember. And I'm going to go through them briefly, and then we're going to go through each in detail and show you how they work. Number 1 is you need an open. And that's what I just did for you, because these 2 things, an attention getter and an open. An open says, whoa, what's going on here? Number 2 is you need 3 points. And yet I know it's tough. When I tell people 3 points, that's it. Now they can have sub-points, but I only want you to tell me about 3 things. Because what happens when you get on the stage and someone starts talking about, today I'm going to teach you the 28 points of how to do this. And you're like, after 3, what do I remember? Think about it. What do you remember? You can't teach me 28 or 75 or any of that other. There's the number, 3. It's hard. What are the 3 most important things that I need to know about whatever it is you're teaching me? 3. And then we end with a close. Now, we're actually going to do this today We're going to use my presentation here today to show you this. We do, and we're like in 25 or 30 minutes going to show you something. We do a full 2 days of this. So if you want anything, we're going to show you how to get to our website later. We're not really here on sales. We're here on teaching today. So let's just recap 1 minute. You got to open, right? You got to have an opening. Then you have to have 3 points, and then you have to have a close. And that basically is, no matter what you're doing, presentations, you need those. So let me go to what I call the first point. But let me just back up a minute, and because I almost forgot to tell you and ask you, even though I can't, but you could write at the bottom of the screen if you want. How many of you love presenting? I mean, how many of you just can't wait to present and get in front of people? Now, I know there are some of you out there like me who just eat this stuff up. We just love it. But it's the #1 fear out there. So don't feel like you're the Lone Ranger out there because you're the fear of presenting. Most people are. And even the pros, even a guy like, for those of you who remember Johnny Carson, even a guy like that, a professional on TV for 20 years, still sweating and getting the shakes a little bit before going on stage. It's not unusual. When I have to sit and wait when I'm doing a presentation, I don't really like it either. And we get a little bit of nerves going in there, but we get pretty good at it. So just remember, you're not the only one. So today we're going to teach you these 3 points. And first, here I go with point #1. Now, I wouldn't use this normally if I was presenting, but I want you to see this is the #1. And the first thing I'm going to talk about is a few keys. This is the first thing. It's 1 point. It has a couple of sub points in it, but it's one thing. I'm talking about keys to being able to do this effectively. Excuse me. And my voice is getting dry here, and I'm going to make it. It's not that long. First thing I want to talk about is when you mess up doing this, who knows it? If I just told you something backwards the wrong way, who would know it? Nobody knows it, but you do. And yet so many people get goofed up. They get messed up. They mess up when they've got to do the presentation. Why? Because they get nervous. Oh, I messed up. Oh, I made a mistake here. Oh, I messed that up. Nobody but you knows that that actually happened. So forget it. Leave it alone. I call it mess up, move on. Because realistically, very few people know it. Now, acknowledgeable, well, let's say there's an elephant in the room because things happen and you messed up and everybody knows it happened. What are you going to do? Well, I can remember being at this presentation and I was standing on the stage. It was very early in the presentation. And sometimes I'll just stand. I looked at the audience. I looked down. And as I looked down, what happened? I have 2 different shoes on. Yep, 2 different shoes. Same shoes, 2 different colors, actually. And now I'm thinking, what am I going to do? Am I going to let this mess me up? Am I going to ignore it? Well, I could have ignored it. But realistically, I had to say something because I could use this. And I happen to be talking about failure creates success that day. So what happened is, as I look down, I look out to the audience and I say, well, let me tell you, no matter how good you get, if you stop failing and everything you do works, you're not taking a big enough risk. Everyone messes up. And I want to tell you what, this morning, I know some of you know, I messed up, didn't I? Because I got 2 different shoes on. And the crowd, of course, laughs. And it's funny. Few people know about it. But I've just used my mess up to create a tighter bond with the audience. So, mess up, move on, or acknowledge. One or the other. Don't acknowledge every little mistake you made because that's not going to create the funny thing. but this is a key for you. The second piece, show and tell. Now, I was at a presentation the other day, and it went real well because people had some things, and they handed them out to people as they were presenting. And the guy did a tremendous job. But here's where you got to be careful. It's okay if you have a few things that you hand out and you have a big audience or a small audience, you hand out a couple of things and people look at it, because in reality, it's going to divert my attention for very little time. What you don't want to do is hand out any handouts. Do not use handouts unless you use them at the end of the event. Even if they're not going to be used till the end, don't hand them out. Don't leave stuff on the tables. Don't do that. Because what happens is, as I'm sitting here speaking and I want you to pay attention to me, what's happening? I'm looking at those handouts. And that's not what you want your audience to do. So, handouts at the end. So remember this. All right? Show and tell. Yeah, you saw me just mess up. Now I want you to see. You see? By looking at that, I forgot what it said. I can't read it from the back, and I messed up. And I shared it with you, right? Don't hold back. Just keep right on rolling, and people will think it's all part of the presentation. All right? Show and tell, but no handouts. Number 3, never tell a story without a point. And never make a point without a story. And I don't know who said it, because I've heard it from so many of the pros out there. If you got a point, you need a story. Because guess what? What do people remember? The story. If you got a story, it's got to have a point. Because otherwise people say, I didn't have any idea. You ever have people tell jokes from the stage that have no relevancy at all on the conversation, and they're like, and you're like, well, what's going on here? So point, story, story, point. And stories, I got to spend another moment here, is stories make it happen. That's how you present. And don't worry about getting those stories off TV and internet. Tell your stories. You have stories. If you are a pro and you're talking about what you do, guess what? You probably have more stories, and they're funny, and nobody ever heard them. I mean, look at these guys. They made a fortune, didn't they? Now, like chicken soup stuff, right? There's just nothing but stories. Now, how many do you have? You probably have great stories that could have been in chicken soup. Point, story, story, point. Now, what I want to show you, and I'm going to go back here, is I just made the first point, didn't I? The first point of this talk, and then what I did was I put 3 sub-points under that. And I kept you on the point. These are all keys that you need to remember. You always need to remember when you mess up, right? And what did I do with each point? I told you the story, right? The story here about putting on 2 different shoes. The story here about someone I saw just do that. The story here, point, story. It kind of tells its own story, right? Point, story. So now I've gone through point 1, and we are, I'm looking for my clock, and we are, I better move a little faster, huh? Am I talking fast enough for you? I hope so. All right, second point I'm going to talk about today is practice, practice, practice. I don't know how many times, I mean, even I teach a lot of salespeople and motivate them and try to get them rolling. And I tell them, guess what? The most important thing you need to do is practice. I am a student of professional athletes. I watch them. I know that a professional football player, if he played the whole game, would actually be playing in about 12 minutes of actual action. 12 minutes. Yet, do you know the hours they practice every week? Do you know how much they've practiced their whole life just to play a little bit? Why? Because they want to be the best. Now, when you get up on stage to do a presentation, don't you want to be the best? Don't you want to be the best at this? I do. I wouldn't want to come up here and present to you without being the best. So that's very important. At least if you're going to do a presentation, even to a small group or something, 10, 20 times. Do it while you're driving. Do it while you're walking. What else practice does for you, it says, oh, that doesn't sound quite right. Maybe I should use a couple different words. Or you know what, that story is okay, but let me use a better story. And it makes the presentation come out. Wow. So there it is, point 2. Practice, practice, practice. Now notice, I'm going to go to point 3 here now. I didn't use any sub-points here, did I? This point kind of stood alone. Practice, practice, practice. I know that when I practice, I am so much better. I mean, I'm pretty good just winging it, but I can tell you I've got myself in trouble winging it. And I'm because I just said stuff and then I didn't have a story. I didn't have something, and I look stupid. And you know, it's hard enough to get up in front of a group. You want to look good. You want to be good, and you can do this. And this, all kidding aside, is key to you being a star. All right, let's go to point 3, because I wanted to share 3 points with you, right? Now, let's look at some personal tips that are going to make you a star when you do this. A lot of you are already a star. You do what you do at a level way up here. Otherwise, you wouldn't be, why watch me teach you how to present unless you're already good at what you do and you want to share it with others. Now, what have you seen me do here? And I'm trying to do it all the time. You see it? It's the smile. A smile is so important. A smile puts people at ease. You walk up to somebody and you smile, they usually smile back. You see your audience out there, you smile at them, they smile back. It relaxes people. It puts them in a different state. If I sit up here with a grumpy look on my face all day long, guess what? Who's gonna think that's cool, right? If I smile, you relax. If I'm grumpy, you say, I got to turn Manny off. So I'm always going to use a smile. Now, I'll tell you the story. Now, I've always smiled. I mean, it's just what I do. It's natural for me. Even if it's not natural for you, add it. I can remember being in the Marine Corps, and I am a Marine, and I was in basic training. And, you know, I'm not a real tall guy, but I'd be amazed at how many people are actually shorter. And you know that story about those drill sergeants, and they're like this in your face, like that? It's true. And they're short little guys, right? And these guys are ramming you up and down. Manny, actually it was Private Nowak, right? Private Nowak, this. And, you know, sometimes I just can't help it. And you break into that smile, right? And bam, that was it. Down on the floor, Private. Give me 150 right now, which means give me 150 push-ups. And you know, if I don't, let me do it while I'm going to stand on your back while you do this. So it's pretty intense. But the smile, what I'm trying to teach you is use the smile. Again, you see how I've used the story there? The story emphasizes the point. Use the stories. You got so many of them. Every point has a story. Every story has a point. The next thing I want to share with you is know your audience. Whether you're speaking to children, you're speaking to teenagers, you're speaking to women, you're speaking to business owners, you're speaking to computer programmers, software developers, you're speaking to engineers. Every group has some nuances and some things that you need to know to be effective. And so you need to really ask that question. If somebody asks you to speak or asks you to speak to a group, ask, what's the group composed of? This speech today is very general because I got thousands of people out there that'll watch this, and I never know, and they'll be in a variety of different areas. But so it's very generic. But if I was doing this speech for young children, I'm a big Tweety Bird fan, right? So what would I have sitting on my shoulder other than Tweety Bird? And I'd walk out on the stage like that, and what would happen? People would laugh and think, wow, that's funny. But I connect. If I was doing a teenage thing, and somebody just gave me this tip, and I'm going to share it with you today, is I would do something with texting. And as I was thinking about that, actually somebody yesterday when I presented said that, I said, geez, yeah, I could get one of those text Manny to this thing, and then it would show them back a message, I'm looking at you, or some weird thing right back to their phone, and that would connect. If I was talking to engineers or programmers, and I can make fun of programmers, right, because that's where I came from, I would use some, but know your audience. It's so important you know who you're talking to, because you don't talk to different groups the same way. This is critical. One more point I think we're going to make, and this is something that you need to understand. Be you and make the audience comfortable. If I got up here and tried to be funny, it wouldn't work. I'm not funny. When I do a presentation and I need something funny, I'll use a YouTube video that's funny, or I'll use some picture that's outrageous. I'm not the kind of person that can tell a joke, but maybe you are, so you should use it. But be you. There's a great thing to remember is one of the great speakers that I have total admiration for, and I followed and read most of his stuff, is a fellow by the name of John Maxwell. Now, John, when John speaks on the stage or on the video, wherever, you think he's right here in the living room with you, sitting back, having a cup of coffee, and just talking with you. That's how comfortable he makes his audience feel. How do you do that? By being who you are, not trying to be somebody else. Yes, sometimes, like when I started out, I was like, I'm the greatest. That was not a living room thing, right? But most times, be you and be comfortable. Don't try to present like I do. Don't try to present like Tony Robbins. Try to present who you are. And I can tell you, that's a true statement, because I spent a lot of time thinking, yeah, I really like to present like Tony. I want to be Tony. I'm not Tony. I'm Manny. So don't try to be somebody you're not. Wow. You saw that again, right? I did it again, right? I used a major point, personal tips, and then I gave 3 sub-points on that. Smile, know your audience, and be you and make them comfortable. Wow. So you saw I did a presentation. I gave you 3 keys. I gave you 3 keys. And now, what am I going to do? I'm going to close. And that really is the end of the presentation. This is critical. A lot of people say the only thing people remember is how you open, how you close, and the good stories that you told along the way. For me, closing is probably a lot tougher, is because I can't finish off with a joke. So usually I finish off with some story. And today I want to just share that story with you. Is if you think you can't do this, think again. Let me tell you, if you went back to my grammar school and you ask, who is Manny? People would say, I have no idea. If you went back to my high school and said, who is Manny? I have no idea. Even if you went back to the Marine Corps when I was there, people don't know me. I was the shy kid. In fact, I was a computer programmer for a number of years. I loved it. I loved developing software. I loved being in the corner. Just leave me alone. And today, I love being out here on the stage. I love what I do. So don't tell me you can't do it. You might be a little shy, but if you're determined to get out here and do it, you can do it. And that is my close. I taught you a lot of stuff today. I mean, we got so much more when we do the 2-day seminar. And if you ever want to know anything about it, I'm going to give you the web page, just email me. But the close kind of wraps it up, and it says anybody can do this. Watch this short video. We gave you some great input today, and we gave you, that's what we do on Hangouts, isn't it? I just want to share, this is where you find me, MannyNowak.com. The website's out there. Now, this video is going to be out there on YouTube. I hope you watch it. We had a great hangout today. I'll leave that up there for a couple more minutes, just in case you didn't get it. It's been a great hangout. I love teaching every Friday. We're here. You never know what the subject is. I got this idea to do this subject, I think, on Wednesday because I was doing a presentation. There's a newsletter coming out Monday, and depends on when you watch this. You could probably find it on our blog. And just so you got that again, it's MannyNowak.com. Wow, I hope this helps you. What I really want to make sure is that we've done today will help you in doing presentation, and will help you understand that you can do this as well as I can. And you can present, and you can smile, and you can do it all. Get in front of that crowd, do it. And if you want more information, you know how to find us. Thank you, and see you on the Hangout again next week. This is the coach saying, go out there and create a better one.